We're continuing down the road to the Snyder Cut, this time talking about Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition. This one's gonna get controversial. Welcome back to the party, everybody. My name's Jaren, and I'm a film critic representing Gen Z. I love talking movies. If you're just like me and you love talking movies, consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on that bell notification to get notified every time my brain grows just a little bit bigger. It's been nearly 2 years since Superman's colossal battle with Zod devastated the city of Metropolis. The loss of life and collateral damage left many feeling angry and helpless, including crime-fighting billionaire Bruce Wayne. Convinced that Superman is now a threat to humanity, Batman embarks on a personal vendetta to end his reign on Earth, while the conniving Lex Luthor launches his own crusade against the Man of Steel. Now, most importantly, before I get into my review and thoughts on this film, make sure to comment down below and let me know what you think, because like I said in the beginning, this is a controversial movie. I know a lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. It's all over the place, so just let me know down below. Wish we could live in a world where DCEU movies were not this controversial, but quite frankly, I have no idea where that universe exists, because it's definitely not this one. Batman vs. Superman may just be the most controversial film in the entire universe, because like I said, there's either those people that really love it, are passionate about it, or hate it. There's not many I've met that are sort of just in between, because obviously this is a film pitting two iconic heroes together, and at the same time, it's almost like it's pitting two different fan bases together. Therefore, you're only at either opposite end of the spectrum. It's hard to really meet in the middle. With only 429 reviews, this film is currently sitting on Rotten Tomatoes at a 28% critic score, but it's got a 63% audience score with over 100,000 reviews. So the critics and a lot of the audiences that reviewed this movie are actually on opposite ends of the spectrum as well. Now, I gotta say that I've been an avid defender of this film since it came out in 2016. I saw the original theatrical cut in the theater, as well as the Ultimate Edition when they re-released that. I just found something so bold and ambitious about it, and at the time when I watched it, I couldn't fully comprehend what I was seeing, but I knew it was special. I knew it was different, and so the more I have gone back and revisited this film, I've probably watched this movie more so than any other superhero film ever. I continue to grow such a strong appreciation and love for all of the ideology and the themes that are presented in this story. I love the idea that all of the effects of Man of Steel immediately carry over into this film, because it picks up from a different perspective, but towards the end of Man of Steel, that same type of area, and we see that, like I said in my review of Man of Steel, Clark is so young in his journey, and he is so new to everything that he was making reactionary mistakes, causing collateral damage because he was letting his emotions control him instead of what he knew was best for himself and the people around him and the city that he loves. And in that process, he ended up killing General Zod and also wreaking havoc among the city unintentionally. He had the right intentions to stop this person who he felt like was trying to take over the planet and also gain control over him, but in the process he ended up costing a lot of lives and causing this negative perception of him for so many people. Obviously, this film was also a big deal because we get the introduction of Bruce Wayne, played by Ben Affleck, which, might I just add, that he is my favorite adaptation of the character we've ever gotten. I'll get into more why that is later on in this review, but the film picks up after the opening prologue. We see all of the things about Bruce's childhood once again. We don't necessarily have to see that arc established once again, but Zack Snyder thought it'd be important to give his touch and kind of symbolize certain things early on. So we see the whole sequence of him as a child losing his parents. You know, he falls into the hole and he kind of has to discover himself and ignite his passion and see what his vision is. So we get that, but then we also go directly into the end of Man of Steel, but from his perspective, when he's driving into the city, he sees Zod's ship in the air and he sees all of the buildings starting to collapse, and he drives to the scene because he has someone who works for him working at one of the highest buildings, and he's trying to warn him and get him out of there as quick as possible. And as he maintains a conversation with his friend who is in that building, We see that Superman and Zod are headed that way. They start collapsing that building that he's in, meaning that he is most likely going to die. In that moment, Bruce gets so angry, and I love this scene because you see this cloud of smoke and all this debris come down fast, and everyone is running out of it, but at the same time, Bruce Wayne is running straight into it because he doesn't fear death, and he ultimately is willing to put the needs and the well-being of everyone else ahead of him, and not even worry about what he has to lose. We're getting a Bruce Wayne in this film that is 20 years past his prime. He's already lost Robin. He's gone through so much that at this point, anything that happens to him is old news. He's not afraid to sacrifice whatever he can, because actually at this point he's kind of lost himself, and he doesn't know exactly what direction to go with his life, with his purpose, and with his drive as being Batman. But the way it's set up so early on that everyone has this negative connotation towards Superman now because he caused all of this damage, including Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne now sets out on a mission to find this guy and see what he's all about and see if he needs to take him down, because he knows that this is some alien from not inside our planet. So in his mind, he doesn't have the best intentions of Earth in mind. He only has a very, very self-centered perception of how to do things. So while Bruce's mission is very much to take down Superman, or at least encounter him and talk to him and ask why he's doing these things, why he had that big battle that caused so much disaster, Superman, we see his perspective. We see Clark just working at the Daily Planet, going about his everyday life, trying to avoid all of those repercussions. But at the same time, everywhere he turns, somewhere on the news, in newspapers, people spray painting his monument. People see him as this figure who is trying to present himself as a god, but at the same time talking about how toxic he is, how the world doesn't need him, and how he's causing more damage than good. When in that process, we see him also going to do good things, helping people, trying to better a name for himself, but also just keep to that attitude that he cares about the people. He's only trying to help the people, but the majority does not see that. And especially with the way that the media has twisted things, it makes that negative perception even stronger, because oftentimes people are so blinded by media and consume everything that's just shown in front of them in a visual form without making any thoughts themselves. The introduction to Batman here is almost like a scene out of a horror movie. It's completely dark and brutal, and really shows just the lengths that Batman is willing to go to at this point in his life, because he's experienced so much that he doesn't even care anymore. The perception of him, we see when these cops are called to this house to where all these girls are caged up, and they're trying to take down this bad guy who has them caged up. We find out that Batman already met him there, and he took care of him big time, including the fact that he branded him. Batman goes around branding people now. He had so many people in fear to the fact that those women that were caged up actually voluntarily stayed in the cage even after they were free and able to go, because they were afraid of what this bat creature might do. He is a symbol of someone trying to make a difference and do good in the dark, but at the same time now people are both so thankful but afraid of him at the same time, because they see that he is willing to take down evil, but they're also very conflicted whether or not he's willing to stop for the good guys. Like, where does he stand now? And that confliction that everyone has, as well as himself, what he has, because you can tell he's been through so much. He's had so much happen to him, not only his parents now, but losing everyone that he felt like he could trust and gain a close relationship with. He continues to lose things. He continues to go through hardships, and that's what we see in this film, to the point where he could care less the perception people have of him, but he's going to continue to fulfill his duties. This movie's brutal, y'all. And the lengths it's willing to go to is what I love so much about it. It's incredibly ambitious. It's not afraid of being dark. Snyder doesn't care about being too dark, because sometimes he realizes that the most realism lies within the darkness. And then we get the introduction of Holly Hunter. She plays Senator Finch, very much speaking out on the fact that Superman has caused damage, and she truly believes he needs to be stopped. One of the biggest themes about this movie is government and politicization of heroes, and realizing that they don't just come and go, that there is governmental procedures, and that at the end of the day, the people who look over the city and over the country have to think about the well-being of their people and how to approach that. And if they need to bring stronger forces in the mix to take this guy down, to hold him captive so he doesn't wreak havoc. Like I keep mentioning, Zack Snyder is so bold in the fact that he wants to tell these stories that otherwise would not be given the time of day, and this story so heavily expresses the confliction and the humanization of these heroes, and for once seeing them as something other than a positive light. These are heroes that we only think of from the comics and the cartoons as someone who just comes in and saves the day. But what happens when they actually have a negative impact? These are guys with true human conflictions, so they deal with real emotions in scenarios that test their faith, test their sense of reality and what they feel is right. And even though they're heroes who wear tights and capes, they still make mistakes too. And people only expect them to ever be perfect, so when they do one bad thing, their entire perception is changed. It's almost as in real life when you see a celebrity who everyone has the best outlook on makes one mistake, and then every single tabloid exploits that mistake. There's news specials about it, there's posts on social media, and all of a sudden this celebrity goes from a positive light to one of the most hated beings in the stratosphere. And so because of this, I love the idea that they express this, that Superman, someone who literally symbolizes hope, is now being seen as a false god who needs to be taken down because his only drive is self-destruction as well as the destruction of everything around him. Batman, Bruce Wayne, being human, is also swayed by this media. He's also swayed by the perception that he sees because he hasn't been able to talk with Superman. He doesn't know. Batman is infamous for being someone without superpowers, just someone who's capitalized on his wealth and built technology to go out and save people and use his brute strength. He's buff for a reason. He's in shape for a reason because he doesn't have the given superpowers to go out and just do stuff. He's got to create this technology himself. And so when he sees someone with this much power and from another Earth, he knows and believes truly at the same time that this guy is up to no good. But truthfully, the biggest villain of all in this film is Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, which I'll just get out of the way now. I love the guy. I think he's a great Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is either supposed to be someone who is very, very debonair and suave and easily believable as a good guy, but then also he can be someone who's just crazy. And Jesse Eisenberg took the crazy approach, but I think it very much fits this portrayal of the character. When we meet him for the first time as Holly Hunter goes to his estate to talk about the governmental procedures and what they could do, and also Lex Luthor is trying to make some investments and do some deals within some certain things. He's in the process of trying to search for this kryptonite because he ultimately has a bigger plan. He seems like someone who also looks at Superman as someone who is not good. But at the same time, yes, he sees him as a god and he sees him as someone who's not good, but he's also trying to present the idea that he believes that he is the true savior. He's got a god complex himself, almost like a Napoleon complex, because he's smaller than these beings out there that are doing damage and saving society. And so he's trying to take down Superman so he can ultimately take reign over everyone and gain control, because this god complex is so strong inside of him. And he believes that now truly those people that they say are from heaven are really the ones coming up from hell. That's the perception he's trying to spin to people. But while others may buy it, Holly Hunter absolutely does not. She keeps her distance with him. She realizes that he needs to be watched. He doesn't need too much access, too much control, or he'll use it for the benefit of himself and really just make things worse than they already are. So ultimately, this is a film about confliction, because everyone, even the people who are presented as good, have a bad side to them. This is a film that expresses the idea that nobody is 100% morally good, that even when they have intentions that are positive, there's always some very self-centered intent behind it. There's motives that are more focused on themselves instead of betterment of people. And even superheroes that we look at do not always do the right thing at all times. So this ideology and expression of morals and who is good and who is evil, and is there a blurred nature between the two? Is there a separation between good and evil, or are everyone just living? There are so many ideas presented in this, and I think that they're all fleshed out so well. Lex Luthor strongly believes that God and man cannot be equal, and that in order to be on the same level, humans cannot rise up, so he has to take the God down. That's his thought process, and maybe when you look at it that way, yeah, it's still crazy. I was gonna try to sympathize and see if I could kind of like get on the same level as him. Yeah, no, Lex is just crazy. So if you couldn't tell already, everyone hates Superman. This whole film is the struggle between humanity, doing the right thing, justice, all of this in one film. I definitely think the theatrical version is nowhere near as good as the Ultimate Edition, and that's why I want to talk about the Ultimate Edition. While I still love the theatrical edition, adding that extra 30 minutes of footage to flesh things out while the film is lengthy, it adds that context and that much needed detail to certain moments that give you more sympathy and understanding of everything going on. Batman also sees Superman as someone who doesn't have emotion, who doesn't have an idea of what humans feel. He doesn't know that he's got a family and a history and true emotions, that he lived on this earth for almost his entire life. So he sees him as someone who is just coming from another planet and feels like he can just take full reign over it. There's also that terrifying moment where Superman is literally in the Capitol trying to reason with people while also getting the judgment by the entire government for what happened, and having other people come up and speak of their experiences and how everything affected them from the damage he caused. And in that moment, when he's going to try to reason to people and try to make them realize that he is only there to help them, the explosion goes off, which was obviously caused by Lex Luthor. And in that moment, you see Superman just standing there in the fire, totally upset, on the verge of crying, because he feels like, even when I'm making the moves now to do the right thing, bad things still happen, and now it's all going to be pinned on me. When will people start to realize that my intentions are good? When will people start to realize that I've always had the motive that I need to protect my city and in this world and bring light to it, not darkness? There's a real struggle with the importance of doing the right thing. Batman even goes on this monologue later in the film talking about how pretty much he's like, how many good guys are left? All the people that were once good aren't anymore. All these people and all these promises that have been made have come and gone so quickly that nobody seems to realize the difference between good and evil anymore, nor does anyone care if they're good. So it's almost doing all of this for absolutely nothing. What once was really a benefit and helping people realize that there's good in the world has now even come to something to where people are not satisfied. And it's not good enough because there's so much more evil that always just overpowers and reverses the good done in the world. So while Superman doesn't have a ton of action in this film, and he is not necessarily the center and the focus, every single scene that he's in I absolutely love, because this is a struggle with his identity once again, and helping people realize what his true purpose is, and even people don't really realize that. So it's his confliction constantly, and I absolutely love that confliction. But this is the majority of Batman's arc. This is his story, his introduction into the DCEU, because obviously he didn't get his own solo film, which I definitely believe he should have gotten. I would have loved it if he gotten it after this film. I think the way that they set this up in this one was very perfect. I love it. I love this approach. Sadly, we didn't get a follow-up film. He was originally going to direct it and star in it himself, but Ben Affleck came across some troubles, as we know. So the vision of it was kind of changed. But everything we get with Batman in this is absolutely amazing. Number one, his struggle with humanity and realizing that his job that was once so appreciated is now so saturated and denounced by all the evil in the world. We see his trauma. We see his identity coming to terms with the fact that maybe he needs to give this up. Maybe he's caused and seen so much negativity in his life and so much loss that he doesn't know if he can keep it up anymore. But truthfully, every scene we see of him in action is the best Batman stuff we've ever gotten on screen. The reason he's my favorite Batman is because he's both so compelling as Bruce Wayne, but also there was not action sequences like this in Tim Burton's Batman. There wasn't action sequences like this in Christopher Nolan's Batman. In fact, Nolan's films were notorious for not having the best action sequences. Ben Affleck got buff, in shape. He wore these suits that were so versatile. He had both the spandex in the very heavy metal armored suit as well as the Nightmare Batman suit that he wore in the desert and made it feel like Mad Max. But every single action sequence is so riveting and engaging, and you feel like you're right in the moment and you never want it to end. But also this portrayal of him is so much darker and brutal and actually sort of horrifying in a sense. Like, I understand the fact that if he came up to people, they would be afraid. I would be afraid too. He's in this new time in life to where he doesn't care what people think, so he's not afraid to brand you and go to the extent without killing somebody to show what he can do and to prove a point. And that is horrifying, but at the same time, for the audience, it's very, very entertaining. Now, I want to talk about the scene that's the most controversial, and I have a differing opinion from most people. It's the Martha scene. After Lex really presents the idea that Superman and Batman just want each other to die, they battle, and they pretend to try to reason, but Batman straight up like, I'm gonna end this right now. They get in this fight. Batman is all in his armor. Superman is just kind of pushing off all of the different barriers that Batman set up and all the different things he's put to get him in the way. But Batman's come prepared with this spear of kryptonite. He's gonna put it straight through his chest and kill him, something he's never done. But he's so fed up with all of these perceptions he has of Superman and all of the violence he's seen him cause that he wants to just rid of him completely because he feels like it'd be better for the world as a whole. And in this moment, we see them fighting, and Batman's ready to kill him, and then Superman says, "Save Martha." That is the moment that is so controversial, because in that moment, Batman says, "Why did you say her name?" And he says, and Lois comes in and says, "That's his mother." And in that moment, Batman stops. But not because he feels like all of a sudden he's good. There's reasoning behind it. Like I said, up until this point, Batman didn't realize that he was a person, that he was a man, that he had true struggles and feelings and emotions and people that he loved. So in this moment, he realizes that, number one, he wouldn't want to be coming here to cause destruction upon the earth when he has earthly parents. He's got a mother that he loves and cares for. Also, Batman realizes that they share the same name. That's horrendous, but then he thinks back to those moments in that time when he saw his mother die, and he doesn't want that to happen again. He knows the trauma of losing who you love the most right in front of you, so he doesn't want Superman to be in this situation as well. Regardless of his negative views of Superman, now realizing in his vulnerability that he truly has people he cares for and good motives, he doesn't want to strip away what he's fought his entire life to gain back some sense of well-being, knowing that he had that same person stripped away as well. And then it's also the moment that he comes to the realization that he was almost about to break his one rule, which is that he would never kill anybody. He was so caught up in his anger that he lost sight of what was more important, that he needs to be focused on taking down the bad guys and making the city a better place, not just ridding of even the people that are trying to help completely. That killing somebody is not going to solve his grief, and it's not going to solve all of the other damage that is being done around the city and around the world. People like to make fun of it if its approach and the way it happened, but I think if you truly dissect the scene and what it truly meant, what Snyder was trying to set up in this film and in this moment, it's very, very pivotal to both of their character arcs, the way we perceive both Batman and Superman, and helps turn the tide to realize that there's a bigger evil that they need to face. And for that, I really love it. I'll die on that hill. I'll fight for that scene. They realize now they team up. Wonder Woman comes into the picture because she was obviously set up early on, as well as a couple other Justice League members were set up in a way that is very controversial. And actually, I'm not a huge fan of how it was set up. I almost think that the ending when Batman is talking to Diana Prince and says that there's more like her. They could have just done that as a cliffhanger going into Justice League. So I definitely see where people are coming from when they don't like that sequence. But obviously Wonder Woman's now in the picture, and we see that Lex Luthor has found Zod's ship, and he went in and he's brought to life this being, which is Doomsday. He feels like in order to stop Superman, he needs to have a bigger godlike figure to fight him and go after him to bring him down so he can maintain this sort of balance. And I will say that this end battle is not the best, but it's also not the worst. I somewhat find it entertaining. I will say that I actually enjoyed this end battle sequence way more than the last battle in Wonder Woman. I think that the villain is a little more compelling. I think it's a little more earned as well. And seeing all three of them team up, it's the Trinity. And obviously, after Superman had been through so much, everyone is defying him and saying that he is evil, and they have this negative connotation towards him. He still has more bad things to come when he literally sacrifices himself to kill Doomsday, but it also means that he dies as well. Everyone knows in that moment that Superman truly was someone who could bring people together, create unity, and solve a lot of the wrongdoing in the world. That he had that moment early on to where he was immature and gave into his emotions, but that's not what his entire character represented. Bruce Wayne also feels terrible now because he feels like he spent his entire journey trying to take him down instead of sympathizing with him and helping him, because he realizes if they were to come together, they could have done something very, very powerful, very effective, and now it's too late. And seeing that moment to where they have the funeral, Lois and his mother are crying when at the end of the day, he was really trying to sacrifice himself to protect his mother and protect the world. It's such a brutal, sad moment. But then you have that ending to where you see the dirt start to rise from the coffin, and then the credits roll. I will always love this movie. Truthfully, every single time I watch it, it's great. Yes, the pacing is a little all over the place. The tones are inconsistent at times because early on it's a completely different film than it is in the last half of the movie. There's so much progression. I definitely feel like maybe if they were to separate this film into chapters, kind of signifying the differences between each part of the film, it would have come across better for audiences who watched it. But I mean, once again, Zack Snyder came in with his tone, his mood, his atmosphere that he builds in every film, and I just love that style, as well as yet another amazing score from Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. My favorite superhero theme ever from any superhero movie is actually Lex Luthor's theme, The Red Capes Are Coming. That is my favorite score and composition of any superhero film ever. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. But also, every moment of action we do get is some of the best we've seen in the DCEU, the best we've seen of Batman. Of course, we get the introduction of Batman, which is so great, the introduction of Wonder Woman, and truthfully just an in-depth character story that examines some things that have never been explored in the superhero genre before, and really presents the idea of the wrongdoing and the humanity of superheroes, and even when they're perceived negatively and how that can destroy their reputation around the world, how media and politics can get in the middle of that, just like certain things we see in our real life. It's ambitious, it's bold, and explores things that no other director, I believe, would ever try to capture in a film, and for that, I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with this movie. Like I said, every single time it gets better for me. That's why I'm going to have to give Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition a 9 out of 10. Y'all are going to hate me. I bet there's going to be a ton of people who absolutely hate Zack Snyder coming on here thinking I'm a fanboy. And maybe I am to an extent. I don't love all of his stuff, but I will say that what he's done within the DCEU has been very monumental and has changed the tide for the superhero genre and presented the possibilities that we never thought we could reach before. And for that, I am very, very grateful. But it's time to go on to Justice League Snyder Cut, the film that many of us have been waiting on for over 4 years now. It's finally that time. So stay tuned for that review. But until then, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to turn on the bell notification to get notified every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the support, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.